What's going on, guys? Aero here, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, we're going to be talking more about Pokemon news, as we actually have an interview here that just recently happened with game director Mr. Masuda at Game Freak. So Mr. Masuda got to have a special interview with Famitsu, and if you don't know what Famitsu is, it's just a special magazine that comes out in Japan, and what happened was someone translated all the information that was discussed in the interview online, and so I'm going to be taking a look at this here and just giving you guys my thoughts on it, as there is some interesting information that comes out here for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, as well as the Pokemon 2019 title that's going to be coming out next year. Now the entire interview is actually extremely long. Mr. Masuda talked a lot about Pokemon Go and connecting that with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and just some features that they decided to put in the game, and just the reasoning behind the games, and so the whole interview is actually very long. There's like 4 entire pages here worth of content from the interview, so I'm not going to be reading through this entire interview, as that's going to easily make this video into like an hour-long video. I don't want that to be the case, and a lot of this stuff is stuff that we kind of already know about. I'm just going to be picking out some of the important questions that I want to discuss with you guys that really talk a lot about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, as well as the title that's going to be coming out next year. But of course, if you are interested in reading the entire interview, I will have it linked in the description, so you can definitely go ahead and click on that link after watching this video and go and check out the entire interview and read it for yourself. But anyways, let's get started. Now I'm not sure how many of you guys follow me on Twitter, but I know a lot of people on Twitter were discussing how they think that Yokai Watch on the Nintendo Switch looks much better than Pokemon Let's Go because of how Yokai Watch has this like realistic art style, and a lot of people were calling out Game Freak and saying that they're lazy and that they're not doing the right thing with Pokemon Let's Go. But the thing is, Mr. Masuda actually talked about that in this interview, so let's take a look at the question. Now in the interview, Mr. Masuda was talking about how he wanted Pokemon Go and Pokemon Let's Go to connect with each other, and how he wanted parents and kids to be able to connect with each other as well, and basically have like the parent play Pokemon Go on their phone, be able to get some Pokemon, and then transfer it for their kid to play in Pokemon Let's Go. So then the question that Mr. Masuda was asked was, in attempting to implement that kind of gameplay, what kind of challenges did you face? So then Mr. Masuda responded by saying, well, we wanted to update the graphics without making them too realistic. We wanted to maintain the game's fantasy elements so that it doesn't surprise any parents who could be watching. For example, we pictured a child playing the game in the living room while their mother watches from the kitchen. It needed to seem like the kind of game that would give her peace of mind. We based the sound design off a similar philosophy. We were particularly conscious in the need to express a sense of gentleness and ease throughout the game's world, so we primarily utilized classical instruments. Personally though, I am quite the fan of fast-paced techno music. And then he went on to say, which reminds me, I'm actually not in charge of the music. That would be Mr. Kageyama. Rather than having a specific direction that he composes the music in accordance to, he primarily focused on what he feels would be comfortable for players to listen to while they're playing the game. As for the actual hardware aspect of the game's sound design, the number of things that we're capable of musically have increased dramatically. We're capable of more technically, so much that we feel that players will be able to feel the music on a more profound level than before, so please look forward to it. So in this part of the interview, Mr. Masuda talked about that the reason that they decided to put the cartoony type of art style was because they wanted to make sure that if parents were looking at their kids playing Pokemon Let's Go, that they weren't worried or like thinking that the games were going to be too scary or anything like that for them. Now I can see where Mr. Masuda is coming from, but I really don't think that it means that they have to make sure that the game has this cartoony cute type of art style and that the sound can't be too hardcore and they have to put like these classical instruments that sound peaceful. I just think that's a little bit too much. In fact, most kids that play Pokemon games probably watch the Pokemon anime as well, and there's definitely some points in the anime where it can get kind of violent, especially like seeing a Squirtle bite a Charmander or something like that. That's kind of violent, and I feel like if kids are able to watch that, there's really no reason that they have to make the cute and cuddly type of art style for their video games. Now the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is why they decided to get rid of wild battles inside of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and decide to incorporate catching mechanics from Pokemon Go instead. So then the question that Mr. Masuda was asked was, incorporating elements from Pokemon Go is quite groundbreaking. It must have taken a lot of courage to make that kind of decision. And Mr. Masuda responded by saying, it was a daunting task that we took upon ourselves for sure. There was considerable debate within the team concerning the absence of wild Pokemon battles. Up until this point, I had been defending the mechanic as series director, but this time I felt like we should try to change things up a bit. Personally, I've always felt that weakening and capturing Pokemon is a bit like fishing. There are people that aren't fans of that kind of strategy though. I wanted to make these games enjoyable for a wider audience of fans, and as such we simplified the mechanics. Until now, catching a Pokemon has been vaguely reminiscent of fishing, whereas I've taken the new mechanic to catching bugs with a net, and have to wonder if people will enjoy that kind of straightforward mechanic more than the previous mechanic. So in the statement, Mr. Masuda talked about how he sees the traditional Pokemon catching as kind of like fishing in real life, but then the catching in Pokemon Let's Go as catching bugs, so it's more simpler. Now, to be honest, I really don't think that it was necessary to have this type of change. Catching Pokemon in traditional Pokemon games isn't really that hard. You pretty much just have to teach them to lower their health, put them in a status condition, and then how to throw a Pokeball. It's not even that hard. There's basically a tutorial in every single Pokemon game at this point, so you don't even really need to learn that much. And I feel like that the whole goal that they're trying to do with Pokemon Let's Go is they're trying to bring over the players who played Pokemon Go and get them interested into the main series games. So then I really don't see what's the point of trying to get people to catch Pokemon like they did in Pokemon Go if the whole point here is trying to get people interested in the main series games, and then if people are interested in them and want to get like Gen 8 next year or play a traditional Pokemon game from the past, they're basically going to have to learn how to catch Pokemon the traditional method anyway. So if anything, they should basically just try to keep the same traditional method into these games and kind of make it an entry point so that they can learn that and then use that in the Gen 8 games next year. Because this honestly makes it seem like they're going to learn how to catch Pokemon like this within Pokemon Let's Go and then get into Gen 8 next year and be like, wait, what is this? How do I catch Pokemon like this? Now, something interesting from the interview that I want to talk to you guys about was in terms of the Pokedex, and they were talking about how the Pokedex is going to feature all 151 original Pokemon, but the thing that's pretty interesting was that they were talking about what the content was going to be like within the game, and Mr. Masuda replied by saying something pretty interesting, and he said, again, I can't say much, but if you catch all of the Pokemon within the Kanto region, something good is bound to happen. Now, obviously, he's going to put this tease there to keep us in suspense and excited for the games, but I do want to talk briefly about what that could possibly be, and so if you guys have any ideas for what you think he could be referring to, definitely be sure to let me know down below. Really, the big idea that I can kind of think of is maybe this is how you're going to be able to get that hidden brand new Pokemon that's within these games. Like they talked about how there's a brand new Pokemon that's never before seen inside of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, so maybe the only way that you can find this Pokemon or even get to it is that you have to catch all 151 Pokemon. Alright, so that's going to do it for all the important stuff in the interview about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Basically all the stuff that I talked about so far is really the important stuff. There was some other stuff about Pokemon Let's Go within the interview, but they were basically just talking about how they had to find the right voice for Eevee, and it took them a whole bunch of voice actors to find that, and that the programmers did a really good job of making sure that each Pokemon really matches itself when it's running around in the overworld. But besides that, there's really not a whole bunch of new information, but the article is linked in the description if you want to go and read it for yourself. But the last few things that we're going to be discussing about in this video is really the most exciting part of the interview, and that's about the Pokemon game that's going to be coming out next year in 2019. Alright, so the first thing that Mr. Masuda was asked about the 2019 game was, let's switch gears into the Pokemon game coming out in 2019. Can you tell us anything about it in its current stage? And Mr. Masuda responded by saying, as I've already mentioned, the Let's Go games are pretty challenging to develop. The 2019 title will truly be a game for those who are already fans of the core Pokemon series. Expanding the series onto the Nintendo Switch has definitely presented new challenges. So of course, this was a pretty generic response, as we can't expect Mr. Masuda to give us a whole bunch of information about the 2019 game, but I do find it interesting how he says that the Let's Go games were pretty challenging to develop, and he doesn't say anything like that about the 2019 game. Like, I don't know anything about game developing at Game Freak, but I do think that making the 8th generation is probably harder than making Pokemon Let's Go, because Pokemon Let's Go is essentially just Pokemon Yellow with some features from Pokemon Go that have been added to it. So I find it interesting how Mr. Masuda doesn't talk about how it's really challenging to develop the Pokemon 2019 game, but he does say that making it on the Nintendo Switch has presented many new challenges, but I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Obviously they're going to be working with HD for the first time and stuff like that, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that they're going to have to learn. The next thing that Mr. Masuda was asked was the Pokemon Company's president, Mr. Tsunekazu Ishihara, has announced that the 2019 title will have more of a hands-on playstyle. Can you tell us anything more about that? And Mr. Masuda responded by saying, for the Pokemon Let's Go games, we imagined that they'd be the type of game that you would play at home on your TV. For the 2019 title, on the other hand, that's the type of game that one would play with their friends on their own Nintendo Switch systems. Those who are familiar with the series through the handheld titles will feel right at home. It'll be closely aligned to the traditional Pokemon game. So here he's just talking about how he sees the Pokemon Let's Go games as a game that you would play at home on your TV, but then he sees the Pokemon 2019 game as the type of game that you would take with you on the go and trade with your friends and stuff like that, and I kind of agree with that, but I really hope that they don't try to make the Pokemon 2019 game really have like a handheld preference where they want you to play the game in handheld mode, as I would love to play the 2019 game in HD on my TV, so hopefully they don't have a really big focus on handheld. And finally, the last question that Mr. Masuda was asked was, will you be able to bring Pokemon from the Let's Go games into the 2019 game? And Mr. Masuda's answer is pretty promising. He says there have been times where you couldn't bring Pokemon over from previous titles, and I imagine that created some bad memories. I want to try and change that if I can. So it definitely does seem that Mr. Masuda is hinting that Pokemon from Pokemon Let's Go will be able to be transferred into the 2019 title. I think that makes a lot of sense. They'll probably have like Pokemon Bank or something come out for that, and Pokemon Bank will probably be able to transfer Pokemon from Ultra Sun and Moon and Sun and Moon as well, so you're going to be able to bring Pokemon from 7th gen into the 8th gen as well. I think it makes a ton of sense. And so there you go guys, that's all the the information that we have right now about Pokemon Let's Go, as well as the Pokemon game that's going to be coming out in 2019, right from Mr. Masuda himself. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to click that like button, and also comment down below and let me know what you guys think of this. How do you guys feel about all the new information about Pokemon Let's Go, and are you excited about the Pokemon game that's going to be coming out in 2019? Be sure to let me know all of your thoughts down below. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Pokemon content in the future, so please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at @ActualAero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord as well. We've got a bunch of nice people there who are always talking about Pokemon, Smash Bros, and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. It'll be linked in the description. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.